Welcome to Finding Faith, the space we come to share stories of encounter, ask questions, and share in the lived experience of others. As you listen to the stories of our interview guests, I ask that you consider the courage it takes to stand before your peers and share your experience of faith for the benefit of another. My name is Jessie Bennett, and this is the 4th episode of Finding Faith. Today we have with us Mallory Brandt. Welcome, Mallory.
Hello.
Mallory, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I guess I can. So I'm Mallory Brandt. I am from here, born here, raised here. I'm married to Matt Brandt, have 3 little ones, Will, Eli, and Vivi Jo, and I stay at home with them all day. That's my life as kiddos. I feed faces and white pionies and don't go anywhere. So
the glamorous life of a stay-at-home mom.
Exactly.
Wonderful. All right. Well, Mallory, would you like to share with us? Mallory's here today to share with us her story of how she really came to encounter her faith and where she's at in her faith right now. So, Mallory, if you wouldn't mind, just share your story with us.
So I have been Catholic all my life. I'm a cradle Catholic. I've been a member of our wonderful parish since birth. I've received all my sacraments here. Was also fortunate enough to attend our wonderful schools from K through 12. Growing up, I was taught all the Catholic things, sacraments, prayers, rosary, the parts of the Mass, all the things. I love that Jesus tells us to have faith like a child because, look how much children just love Jesus. My kids even, they're, there's Mary and there's Jesus and he loves us, It's so easy for them to talk about him and love him and have that complete faith, like he tells us as adults to have. But then the world, or I guess I should say Satan, gets to us and introduces us to all of these bad things. So for me, it was probably about 6th grade or so, I guess, when Jesus just wasn't cool anymore. All of my friends, my peers, they were cooler. The whole fitting in thing was more important. My parents, were good, faithful parents, always took us to church, and continued to try to lead us on a good life. But as I got older, I was just there, in church, not paying attention, not giving a hoot about any of it. And that continued on through high school and into my young adult life. I just went because I was supposed to, or so mom and especially grandma wouldn't find out, and get mad. What was more important to me was what I was going to be doing on Friday and Saturday nights after church. Because, as a matter of fact, I would only go to 4 o'clock Saturday night Mass every weekend because I was selfish and knew I'd probably be hungover Sunday and didn't want to get out of bed. So I guess about junior year was when serious sin entered into my life. Things like premarital sex, contraceptives, getting drunk, reckless driving, being just so judgmental and rude and just ugly to people. I considered myself a good person. I was respectful to my elders and, asked what I was, or did what I was asked to do. I said, please, thank you, etc. But I just was a mean girl and my soul was just ugly. It was just nasty. My biggest sin, though, which I don't even think I paid attention to, was the sin of presumption, which is the taking granted of God's mercy and forgiveness, and then receiving the Eucharist in a state of a mortal sin. Confession was pretty well non-existent. In school, I would go those 2 times a year. I felt like, because they made you before Easter and Christmas. But sometimes even then I wouldn't go, or I'd intentionally not say a specific sin because I knew I wasn't sorry, or I would say a sin knowing darn well when I walked out of that church, I was going to commit it again. I knew I was in a state of mortal sin and I knew it was wrong, but I thought God would just, be okay with it. I was like, oh, but God, I'm going to marry this boyfriend that I'm having sex with, so it's okay. No, wrong. Or, well, God, that's not that big of a deal. Like, there's people out here committing murder, my sin's not, that bad. Like, no, it's wrong. All of it's just wrong. I'm sure my guardian angel was like whacking me over the head with a club or something because I was like so stubborn, but I didn't feel it. So again, going to Mass every weekend, but just not caring, doing all the bad things, and then just really thinking that I was somebody and I was really cool and living my best life. So I guess fast forward to about 2014, I credit some of my conversion to Father Baker. So in 2014, in February, me and my husband, we got engaged, and we started going to our premarital classes. And Father brought a lot of the Catholic teachings and stuff back to light. We did the compatibility test, and he went over all of those in more detail. And I was like, hey, like light bulbs started going off. I was like, I remember that. And, yeah. And then also for that year for Lent, I had decided to start saying a rosary every day, either to or from work. And when I started saying it, I honest to goodness forgot how. I literally, good job, Mom and Dad, for sending me to Catholic school, because I forgot how to say a rosary. Like I knew it was, 1 Our Father, 10 Hail Marys, but I couldn't remember the mysteries to save my life. So I had to relearn all of that. And then after Lent was over, I thought, you know what? I'm not doing anything else while driving in the car, 30 minutes. So let's just continue to say one every day. So Father also encouraged us to go to confession before we got married. And so then and there I was like, okay, maybe this can be my clean slate. I did a really good examination of conscience, went in, confessed all of my sins, and I was truly sorry. I was like, you know what? It's time to get right. Let's, I realized how bad I was and wrong. And so wanted to do better and confess those sins. And so once me and my husband were married, we knew we wanted to start off right. And so we decided on natural family planning. But that wasn't hard for us in the beginning because we also knew we wanted kids right away. And that's when I would guess God really became more important and present in my life. For the first few months, me and my husband didn't even pray together at night. And I know it was a homily. I don't remember if it was Father Brian by then, gave a homily about, praying together and families praying together. So I was like, okay, we need to start praying. Then after a few months of, trying for baby, no baby, we got introduced to St. Gerard. So we prayed to him every night, said several novenas. I know St. Jude is one. I have a big devotion to St. Anne, who is the patron of mothers and infertility. So I did a lot of praying to her. And for a year and a half, still nothing. So finally, I was like, you know what, God, I give up. I tap out. Your will be done. I'm so over, worrying every month. Like, is it going to be this month or not? Whatever. So if kids is for us, then whenever you're ready. If not, then we'll figure something out, And so my husband and I did do a test each to make sure that we were capable of having kids. That was at the beginning of November 2015. There we go. Those tests came back fine. And my doctor said, here's what our next step could be. And we both agreed, since it was November, holidays coming up, that we would just wait till January to take the next step. And then November, December, just kind of do its thing. And then on December 5th, I found out I was pregnant. And if anyone ever denies the existence of God, they've never, seen a birth or felt a baby move or anything like that, because there is just no other explanation of birth, a woman's body, than God. I could go on all day about how awesome that is. Children are, they're legit miracles, and just how amazing, that they are tiny little bitty apple seeds and then brought into this world as 9-pound, boys and girls. Seriously, there's God. I think of that song, I saw God today. Like, there he is. So, just letting go of what I wanted and giving it to God, that really helped transform me. And, he gave me my heart's desire. He gave me a baby. After our son was born, I was fortunate enough to be able to stay home. So I told myself, because of that, adoration was going on. They needed somebody. Started going. My hour was Friday nights from 11 to midnight, and I absolutely loved it. Best hour of my week. So quiet, so peaceful. I started diving into our Bible. So in adoration, I'd go in and I would journal. I was still praying the rosary. I read all the Gospels, and I've read them several times since. And it's so awesome to me how different I interpret each Gospel, differently based on whatever season of life I'm in or what I'm going through. Like, just different things will speak to me. And I'm like, hey, that makes sense for what I'm going through. And then when trying to get pregnant, I turned a lot to 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 12, which says, "For this reason I also suffer these things, but I am not ashamed, for I know in him whom I have believed, and I am confident that he is able to guard what has been entrusted to me until that day." And then probably my favorite chapter in the whole Bible that I've read thus far is Matthew chapter 6. All of it's fantastic, but specifically verses 25 through 34, which is the do not worry. God does everything for birds and trees and flowers and creatures and, for just everything. So will he not do even more for us? And still till this day, anytime I worry or start thinking, something bad's going to happen, the what ifs, I go to Matthew 6:25-34. And every time I'm done reading, I just feel peace. I'm just like, okay. And so I credit a lot of my conversion to just age, maturity, being a mother, God giving me the responsibility of now trying to raise 3 little saints, his children. Figured I needed to work on becoming a saint too and getting my soul to heaven as well in order to get my babies there too. I guess over the next 4 years, or so after my son was born, my faith life just kind of fluctuated, becoming a mom to 2 boys, 15 months apart. So finding time to be with Jesus was hard, or at least the quiet time. Confession became more frequent. I was still praying a rosary, saying prayers, trying to read the Bible, again, as best as I could, because some days I failed because, again, just life and 2 boys. And sometimes I was like, God, I think I'm going to take a nap instead. During that time too, my husband, he also got a new job. So 2 weekends out of the month, I was responsible for taking our kids to church by myself. And church is hard enough to pay attention to when there's 2 adults, much less when, there's 1. I always feel like if you get to go to church by yourself, you found the rainbow unicorn. It's like, whew, get to sit there and, be quiet and listen. So as I'm sitting there, with 2 screaming kids, one, trying to get out of the pews, it's just like, why am I here? Why bother taking them? What's even going on? You're just there, just like, ugh. So it literally took Jesus getting taken away from me to realize how amazing and beautiful our Mass really is. So I'm going to throw some statistics out here real quick. So a study done last year showed that 69% of Catholics believe that the bread and wine used in our Mass are just symbols of Jesus's body and blood, and only 31% actually believe that it truly becomes his body, blood, soul, and divinity. I found that totally crazy. So I didn't claim that I was in the 69%, but I wasn't really also in the 31 either. I kind of was like in my own little bracket. However, I had the faith, this is really Jesus. And I would refer to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, which is faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And so I knew if I had that faith the size of a mustard seed and truly tried believing in him, that I could. And it wasn't until this coronavirus and when Mass was taken away from us that I was like, oh my gosh, I am longing for the bread of life. Just, was kind of just a shadow casted over me. And I'm sure many people that, we were longing for Jesus. And then especially whenever we were finally able to view church from our own parish on Holy Thursday and Good Friday. I mean, we had set up our little fake church, and I just cried, sitting there watching Father Brian and him holding up, Jesus and everything. It was just so beautiful. And I was just like, I just wanted Jesus. I never knew I would feel that way. It was literally a you don't know what you have until it's gone type moment. And so from then and there, I told myself, I was like, I never want to go through another time where I don't get to receive our Lord. Never. So during quarantine, was when I really just wanted to dive into our faith. I ordered so many books off Amazon. It's ridiculous. My husband, every time the UPS man come down the driveway, what'd you get now? And I'm like, just more books. I read articles online. I found different Catholic YouTubers. And one woman, I found, she explained that she still attends a Latin Mass, which I didn't even know were still even a thing. And it got me thinking, what was Mass like before Vatican II? And what was it like, in the 1800s, or even whenever St. Peter was our Pope? How did they go to Mass and all of this? So I asked Joe Bland if he could do a YouTube video on the history of church and the Mass. And he gave me a few things to look up. And so from one of those things that he let me look up, I discovered Bishop Barron. He's fantastic. I watched a documentary on Vatican II, and I just dived into our faith. And it reminds me of Mary Poppins' bag. It keeps coming, just endless. A good friend of mine, he said, our faith is like a treasure chest, that it has no ending, and it's just treasure after treasure after treasure because it's so deep and rich in history. It's beautiful. And so from different books and YouTube videos, it just helped me show how, I was still sinning. I wasn't doing mortal sins anymore, but just little things, just kind of, being a little judgy or gossiping. I had an incident with a friend that it just showed me how I was wrong. And I was like, what? I don't want to be like that anymore. And so I vowed that I wanted to be all in, no more 50% Catholic, no more 75. I want to be 100%. I want my heart to burn for Jesus, just as his burns for me every single day. And like I said, I want to be full and drunk on the Holy Spirit. But it's hard, because I am human. So I sin every day, and I really do try hard every day. And I turn to God's mercy and try living the best life I can, and turning to God in every moment possible and asking for help in carrying my crosses, is just what I try to do. And I'm so fortunate for that time, because then he helped me in carrying my biggest cross that I've had to carry yet. So on Memorial Day of this year, I found out I was pregnant. A few weeks go by, and I was supposed to be about 8 weeks along, but then I started spotting, in which I know can be common for some women, but that's never happened to me, so I kind of knew that was a flag. I got with my doctor, and she got me into an ultrasound, and from that it showed that my baby was only 5 weeks along, and based just on the date of my last period, and since we do, NFP, I knew when this child was conceived, and so the baby it stopped growing at 5 weeks. And I think all along I knew something was up, because I wasn't having any of my normal symptoms, no sickness, that utter exhaustion, that comes with that early pregnancy. Like you don't want to do nothing but sleep. But on the way to that ultrasound, I prayed a rosary, and I asked Mama Mary and Saint Anne, again, I have a big devotion to her, just to be with me, wrap me in the mantle of Mary's love, because I was going to this appointment alone by myself. And I truly felt their comfort. Once the ultrasound tech said that the baby probably had stopped growing, I didn't immediately break down, and I felt someone in that room with me. It's just the weirdest thing. I felt a presence, and I felt comforted. Now, that's not to say that when I got into my van, I didn't break down, but I knew Mary and St. Anne were just in there with me along with Jesus. It was just an awesome feeling. So I had some good and bad days over the next few days. I ended up watching 2 videos on YouTube for help and for guidance. One was on suffering, and one was on why does God allow bad things to happen. And after watching those, I asked Jesus to just comfort me. I wanted to throw myself into his arms, because I couldn't do it anymore. I needed help in carrying this cross. I wanted his comfort. I wanted him to just wrap me up. And I said, I don't understand why this is happening, but I accept your will. And so from there, I decided, I'm going to offer up my suffering to the number of couples I know who have had multiple miscarriages or who can't get pregnant at all. I have been so fortunate and blessed to have, 3 healthy pregnancies, 3 healthy babies, and have seen 4 now positive pregnancy tests, where there are so many women who've not even seen one. And I thought, my child, it was born into the hands of our Savior. What more could I ask for? He or she is up there with our loved ones, with Mama Mary, with Saint Anne, our guardian angels, and just all the holy people. And I have faith in knowing I will see that little one again. And I can't wait for that day. I can't wait. And so with that, I felt acceptance. I felt peace with what was going on in my body. It was not fun by any means, but through prayer and our Lord taking me into his arms, I just knew I was going to be okay, and I was going to get through this. And what's so crazy, the next time I went to Mass after this happened, I got to go by myself. I found the magical unicorn. So when singing the Mystery of Faith, I again felt that same presence I felt in the doctor's office that day. I couldn't help but just cry there in the middle of Mass. And it was the 8:00 Sunday night Mass, so it wasn't even hardly anybody in there. I'm like, people are probably thinking, I'm like, what's going on with her? But it was just so beautiful. It was just a truly amazing, and how eye-opening things are when you have Jesus in your heart. And I have such a love for our Mass now, for the Eucharist, and for Jesus, just after the books I've read. It's awesome. And I give myself to him every day, 9 times out of 10, every day. It's hard because, again, I'm a sinner. I sin with the best of them and am nowhere near perfect. But by God's saving grace and all the things he does for us, we can become new. No matter how deep we've dug ourselves, he's always there waiting with open arms for us to just throw ourselves into. It just takes us willing to let go, and just to let God. So I would credit just my conversion to many things and many people, and I'm sure tons and tons of prayers from my grandma, because goodness knows she's probably said a ton for me. But for all of those reasons and people, it's just all glory and praise to God, because he gives us these people or these trials or these crosses to bring us closer to him. It's a fight or flight situation. We can flight, we can listen to Satan and listen to him say, why did God do this to you? He doesn't love you, just forget about him. Or you can fight and you can say, no, Jesus, help me. I need help. I need help fighting this cross and carrying this cross. And I forever want to fight for him, because without him, without his love, without his saving grace, we are nothing and can be nothing. Him and heaven are my ultimate goal, and it should be as for all of us. So.
First of all, I would just like to say thank you so much for sharing your story of faith. It takes a lot of courage to step out and be willing to share that with other people, and to allow others to really just bare your soul. And I want to thank you for that, because it's such a beautiful story. And secondly, you are so correct that grandmothers and mothers, I swear, they're getting most of us into heaven.
Right?
It's got to be.
Oh, yeah.
Their prayers are worth their weight in gold.
Yes.
All right. So if it's okay, Mallory, I'd like to walk through some of your testimony and what you shared with us. And I just have some questions. In the very beginning of it, you said that you decided to start saying a rosary every day during Lent, and that you'd forgotten the rosary. Mm-hmm. And I feel that as a Catholic, a lifelong Catholic, if you don't say the rosary often, remembering all those mysteries can be a challenge.
Yes, and then what days you're supposed to say them on, like,
exactly. And you also talked about how you have this devotion to Mary and St. Anne. Is that where this began?
Yes. Well, yeah. Well, St. Anne's kind of always been there. She was my confirmation saint. So I just always looked up to her. And I just, think it's awesome that, she was Mary's mom and then Jesus' grandmother. Because again, we talk about grandmas, so she was there to help guide Jesus too. So I've always loved her. But then, yes, definitely the rosary helped my devotion with Mary. I have a much more devotion to her now too, and especially as a mother, turning to her, being like, okay, if my kid's being this bad, well, look what Mary, went through with Jesus on the cross, it's okay.
Yes. Tell me a little bit about what it was like for you to pray the rosary every day. How did that Lent shape you or change you moving forward?
So I had to get on the internet to look up the mysteries, and so I think from there, it would lead me to different links to look up, more things. That's whenever I think I found more of the novenas, and it helped with traffic, leaving work. I was squeezing a Hail Mary bead instead of cussing somebody. I was screaming a Hail Mary at them. So I guess that helps too. But I think it definitely helped in shaping me and changing me and making me more aware of sins and things that I was doing wrong.
And you talked about going to confession, making that assume what was a good confession there to have a clean slate right before you got married. What was going through your mind before you went into that room? What was that experience like for you?
Oh my gosh, so nervous. Because I used to be one who, I don't want to go to my own priest. And so I think we went to St. Stephen somewhere on a weeknight, but just so nervous. And then going through again, the good examination of conscience. There's one I go to almost every time that it breaks down every little thing. And so I was I didn't even know that was a sin. And I'm and here I was doing it, so it brought a lot of things to light. And, I was nervous going in, but just felt so good coming out.
Yes, confession is so amazing. And you're right, it can be a challenge. I hate going to priests that I know. It's so nerve-wracking.
I do too.
If I do, I always like to go behind a screen so at least they can't see me.
Yes.
I know they recognize my voice. I know they know who I am, but
exactly.
It's just something about that comfort of them not actually looking me in the eyes. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think it was maybe Father Larry Richards. I love him. He one time said, you should go to your own priest because it's like going to your doctor. Your doctor knows your ailments, your wrongs, what's hurting. That's a priest too, so you should want to go to your priest, even though, you go in there and you're like, hey, Father, I'm back. But it's okay. He knows. And he's your spiritual advisor. He's there to help you. Okay, let's work harder this time, Mallory, you can do it. So I think that's a little tidbit, I guess. You should go to your priest. You should want to go to your own priest.
That is a fantastic analogy. I know that you should. And, I've been told the same thing, but I've never heard it explained quite like that. And I love that visual of it's like my doctor. I wouldn't go to a different doctor every time I had a problem. I would go to the same doctor so they could help me work through whatever the thing was.
Yes.
Instead of trying to catch them up every single time.
Yeah.
So it makes total sense that we should do that in our spiritual lives because they are our spiritual doctors. Mm-hmm. Like you said, they're guiding us, they're helping us. And they can only do that if we continue to go to the same one. Very good. I love that analogy. You talk about the Mary Poppins bag that is our faith. Again, you have such a way with words. I love that imagery of our faith being like a Mary Poppins bag because it is. You're right. I have a priest friend, he's in his 50s, 60s maybe. And he says that, even though he went through all these years of seminary and has been a priest for so long, there are still things he doesn't know about the church. And he said, I could read every day from dawn until dusk about the Catholic Church, and I would still never be able to uncover all of the treasures that she has because we're so rich with tradition and treasure. So it sounds like you're a researcher from all the things that you said before, and during this quarantine, you read all of these books.
Yes.
So tell us, what have you learned?
One of the books I just got finished reading a few weeks ago was The Mass, I think is what's called The Mass, by Edward Sri, yes, S-R-I, yeah. And just basically, why do we do what we do? Why do we say what we say? Why do we sit? Why do we stand? Why do we kneel? Where does all of this come from? And it's all biblical. Like every bit of it, he breaks down every part of the Mass. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. Or that day in church that I cried when I felt the presence. Father says, blessed be God, Lord, you of all creation, through your goodness, we have this bread we offer, fruit or wine, fruit of the vine and work of human hands. I never knew, realized what that said. And in that night in Mass, I was like, oh, it is. It's like our hands. And, we do this. So it's our offering to Jesus. And why do we offer it? And it's in that book. So I totally recommend that book if you're just wanting to know, why, how, what, when, read that book.
And for anyone who doesn't like books, he also has, I believe, a video series that explains this and does a walk through the Mass. Mm-hmm.
Or just even YouTube.
You also talk about becoming a mother, and you credited a lot of your conversion to age maturity and becoming a mom. And you said that God is giving you the responsibility of trying to raise 3 little saints, and you figured you needed to work on becoming a saint too. And I just wanted to echo that sentiment. When I had kids, I work for the church. Mm-hmm. I struggle with prayer and it is what it is. Mm-hmm. As we're human, like you said. Normal. It's normal. The big important thing is always that you continue to work through those things and continue to strive towards holiness and work with God. And so when we had our first child, I realized, I want her to grow up to be Catholic. I want her to grow up and to know who Jesus is and that he loves her. And I'm thinking of one instance in particular. We made up a prayer for our kids when they were little to say at night. And we've said it ever since Lillian was born. She's 5.5 now. And maybe about a year ago, we wanted to start saying heart prayers or having them, not just say this memorized prayer, but praying from their heart. And so we asked them to pray from their heart. And, it was around Christmas. That's what it was. And so instead of praying, they would thank Santa for the gifts that he brought them. So it was, thanks Santa for the Paw Patrol sleeping bag. And I'm like, well, that's not quite what it is. I got so frustrated because I was like, why don't they know how to pray? And then I realized I've never actually shown them how to pray.
Yeah.
And so my husband and I started doing a little heart prayer beforehand and teaching them the format and how to, pray for something and then someone. And so now, they do that on their own and they have their own heart prayers. There's just nothing like becoming a parent and really realizing that if I want my child to begin doing the thing, whatever the thing is that's important to me, I have to first example that for them. What a gift and a blessing it is to be given these little souls that we get to shape and raise in the church.
Yes. Yeah, because I am in that situation too. We say, Our Father, Hail Mary, glory be, an angel of God, and my oldest is just 4, he'll be 4 next month. So he doesn't quite, get it yet, but I'm the same way. I want to do heart prayers because, you have to have that close personal relationship with God. It's not just about rambling on the normal prayers that, because I struggle with that myself. I have my prayer book in the mornings and I, ramble off all my different prayers and I'm like, I need to stop and say from, my heart. And so again, that's what we want to teach our kids too. It's we need to, pray for this person or that person or whatnot. And so I need to do that myself. So that's something I do need to work on. And then, so here in the next year or so, we can start teaching Will and, maybe we can do around Christmas too. So we can start with Santa, work our way up to Jesus, work with St. Nicholas and then work our way up to Jesus.
Let me tell you, it's fun.
It is. I bet. Oh my gosh. Kids are so funny.
Yes, they are. And you also mentioned, how difficult it is to take children to church. I've been there, done that. I was just laughing the whole time. If you've ever seen me and my family, my sisters and all of the nieces and nephews, it's a circus, and we sit in the front pew. So if you've never seen it, come to the 9:00 mass, hang out with the Hagans in the front, and you'll just see an absolute circus. It's so much fun. And I just wanted to mention this, bring it up, because it's so important. I've talked to so many women, so many moms who are in that situation. They're coming to church by themselves with littles, and it's so hard to pay attention. Let me tell you, it's okay.
It is. It is.
God gives you the graces, whether you're able to fully devote your attention to him in that moment, or whether you're struggling with the octopus and a bear. Because that's what it feels like.
Yeah. And you have to I'm a firm believer in bringing your kids to church. Yes. People might look at you and you're going to get all the bad judgment comments, but you're going to get good ones too. People are going to talk regardless. So you're going to have the people say, oh, those kids, but then you're going to hear the people who say, good job, you brought your kids. And that's how they're going to get better. If you just bring your kids randomly, or, when they're older, they're not going to know how to act, or, what to do, or what to look at, and so bring your kids. It's okay. We're all there. And I think that is important too, for moms to support moms and be like, you know what? It's okay. Cause I kind of too, when I would go by myself, I'm kind of like, I'd look around. I'm like, okay, if I need to have an emergency, run off to the bathroom, whatever, I'm like, I'm handing my kid to that person over there. Like, I know they'll take my kid. Or I think even in an instance, I did have to pass my baby to somebody one time because Eli ran off in the middle of, communion. So I had to, go grab him, but it's okay. Cause we're a village, right? And so we're supposed to support one another, and that's why we're all here. So I knew at any given moment, if somebody, I'm like, here, take my kid real quick. So it's okay.
Yes, it is so true. And they are sponges. Yes. Whether you realize it or not, it may look like they're sitting on the floor, rolling the car around, but they're hearing those bells in the background. They're hearing Father's homily. They're hearing the words, and they're seeing the actions. And eventually they're going to start picking up on that. And it takes time and practice. If you're struggling or worried that people are going to look at you funny, come join me at the 9:00 mass.
Yeah, us too. Because even again, my husband, he just got a new job, so now he's able to come with us every weekend. But it's still, it's fun. Yes. It's fun, but it's okay.
It is. And so I just wanted to bring that up, because I know a lot of people have fear that they're going to be looked at funny, or they're just worried because the kids are crazy, and they are, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's what they're supposed to do. Jesus said, bring the little children to me. And I firmly believe that means the octopuses and the bears and the perfect little ones who sit there quietly. And I don't know how their parents have done it, but they hold their hands and they're so quiet. And I just sit and watch in envy. Yes, please. If you have a secret, tell us what it is.
And I'll be the first to admit too that I was one of those judgy people. So again, my soul is ugly, and there'd be kids, I'm like, well, that kid, and now, eating a big old piece of humble pie, and especially with our second one, Eli, he's the handful. And so I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. And so nowadays I'm like, it's okay. You know what? You're doing good, Mom. You're doing good. All moms doing good.
Doing good. Bring them.
Yes,
wiggles and all.
Bring them.
One last thing I want to talk about. You mentioned the being deprived of the Eucharist during Corona, or the beginning of all of this, and just how you fell in love with it and do not want to miss out on it again. So could you share with us just a little bit about how you view the Eucharist and what it means to you?
I mean, now it's really Jesus, so again, that percentage, whatever it was, the 69%. How crazy is that? That 69% of Catholics just believe that it's a symbol. And, that's, because that's what they believe. And only 31% believe that it's, his true body, blood, soul, and divinity, which is what it really is. And so again, I wasn't going to sit there and say, oh, it's just a symbol. But at the same time, I wasn't like, man, is that really, how's that possible? And again, through that book, The Mass, another book I just finished yesterday, actually, The Fourth Cup by Scott Hahn. He's a brilliant genius.
Oh my gosh, I love.
Yeah, I've read several of his things, and I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? He's awesome. So in that book too, just, and so now I look and I'm like, I'm fixing to go receive Jesus. I need to be humble, reverent. I say those types of prayers before going and receiving him, to where beforehand it was just kind of like, oh, we're going to pray to receive Jesus. No, now you're fixing to do something pretty big. You're fixing to have Jesus inside of you as one. So, you should go forth your day like him, or try to be like him. Of course, everybody fails every day because we're sinners. And so, I just look at it totally different now. And again, longing for him And the first time we were finally able to go back to Mass, I'm pretty sure I probably cried, walking to receive him. I'm a big crybaby anyways, but I was just like, finally, like, here he is. I get to be filled with the bread of life again.
Yes. Yeah. Quarantine and COVID was such a weird time, and being deprived of the Eucharist. And after a few weeks, Joe and myself were able to come up here and we helped with recording. And it was so strange to be in an empty church.
I bet.
And, so heartbreaking as well. Knowing that I could receive and my family couldn't, and the people who were close to me could not, because it was just the small group of us that were there. Such a weird time frame.
I'm sure. And priests, saying Mass with an empty church, like how weird for them, because, their people need to be mingled with people, and here they're by themselves or with just a few.
Well, Mallory, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to talk to you.
This has been fun.
And thank you all for listening here today. If you are interested in hearing more stories of finding faith and encountering, tune in next week for our next guest. If you have any questions, need someone to journey with, or would be interested in sharing your story, please contact me at findingfaith123@gmail.com.